Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
Hey, what's up guys, Star Wars Only. I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to do a Q&A for about an hour long, or just kind of like a podcast kind of thing, where we just talk about Star Wars and have people on my Instagram ask me questions about Star Wars. So I'm going to answer some questions and we're going to talk about some Star Wars stuff. So let's get going. The first question is opinions on what Disney have done to Star Wars. And that's a classic question. Everybody's going to ask that a lot. You know, people complain about Disney a lot and what they've done to Star Wars in general since they bought it from Lucas. And you know, I understand the hate people got for it, but I'm torn. You know, there's some really good movies and there's some really bad ones that have come out from Disney. I thought The Force Awakens was a very solid movie. I thought it was very okay, enjoyable. You know, solid 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10 movie. Rogue One's enjoyable, and so is Solo, a Star Wars story, but they're very forgettable. But in terms of content and creativity that's come from Disney, I don't think they've done anything very good for Star Wars. I think, if anything, the great thing they've done for Star Wars is brought it back into the public eye and kind of grown the audience. I mean, Star Wars fans have really grown over these past few years, and of course we have lost some because of, you know, the recent movies like The Last Jedi and like, you know, cancellation of EU, but those people still like aspects of Star Wars. So I think Disney's done very good at bringing Star Wars back into the public sphere. You know, after Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars has kind of died out from its huge stardom that it used to have compared to the 70s, the 80s, and even the early 90s, and so I think Disney's done good in bringing it back to that aspect, but I mean, in terms of creativity and content, I just don't think it's been up to par. But let's talk about something else. Someone said Disney or EA for worst company. Man, y'all are really hating on Disney. If I had to pick, I would have to say EA. I think EA is a blatant scam. I mean, it's hard. Actually, it's hard for me. EA is a smaller version, and I'm going to change my answer. I'd actually have to say Disney's the worst company. They have a lot that's going for them that's good in terms of some of the stories they put out, in terms of movies, and, you know, companies like Marvel and everything. They own ESPN and everything. But my problem with that is that they're getting so much control over what I determine as a big part of our society and our culture, our television. They're taking apart or taking over a lot of television, and a lot of movies that we're going to see are mainly by Disney now, and that really kind of controls the narrative that we as an audience go in to see a movie, a show. You know, look at Star Wars, how much it's changed in its message compared to the sequels, even the prequels or the originals. I mean, there's political messages in all of them, but it's grown since it came out. You know, you have A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Those are, you know, the originals. There's not a lot of political messages in that. You know, it's just very blatant. There's the rebellion against a big authoritarian government that just wants to control everything, and it's just truly evil. It's not a big political message. And then you get to the prequels, and it was like, oh, you have this guy kind of using politics to rise to power and everything, and once he does, he rules everything, and that's all he wants is just power. And it touches on that, but it's not the main focus. I mean, if it was poorly constructed. I thought the politics in the prequels were very boring, but it wasn't an overwhelmingly political message. So that's a problem I have with the sequels, that you have a big political message, and that's what Disney's doing. They're taking over everything, and they're putting political messages in there, changing your narrative and changing your thought process. You go in and you think a certain way because of all the movies you've grown up and watched, and that's what Disney's doing. So in that case, I would say I feel like they are worse than EA. And in the long story short, I do think they are a worse company for EA because of the huge impact they have on society. And it's not like EA where, oh, we just stopped watching, you know, we stopped buying their games and everything. Disney controls so much, it's kind of hard to avoid that, so whatever. Next question is KOTOR 1 or 2. I'm going to have to go with 1. You can't beat a classic, and I think the first one was a good classic. The twist at the end was mind-numbing. It was really great, and it just really is a good game. I have fond memories of, you know, just playing that game and then going to, like, it starts with a C. I can't remember. You're gonna kill me in the comments, but it's the Sith homeworld, and it's interesting to go to places like that and other places where, like, the big ocean planet. It was very interesting. I love the locations. I like the second one because it deals a lot with the Sith Lords, but I think the first one, in terms of story, just takes it away, and so I really like that. Next question is thoughts on Plo Koon as a character, legends, and canon material. Not much to say for him. In the movies, he was nothing. Clone Wars show, I thought he was a very good kind of almost another mentor figure for Ahsoka, other than just, of course, Anakin. He had more arcs in that I liked, and he seemed like, in my opinion, one of the perfect representations of what a Jedi is. He's calm, he's collective, but also assertive at the same time. He seems like the guy you'd go to for questions and everything, and truly just wants to do the right thing. So I liked him in the Clone Wars show. I liked him in the comics that I read back in the day, but nothing really stuck out to me in comic wise. So I don't know too much about him. Whenever it came to reading comics, it was mainly about the Old Republic for me, and it was mainly about the post Episode 6 kind of stuff. So I never really focused on the Clone Wars. It's not that I never liked the Clone Wars. I was never really into it. Next question is your favorite EU comic and why so? This one's rough, but I'm gonna have to go with the Yuuzhan Vong War stuff. And I'm not sure which comic it was, just kind of that arc itself. Those are really fun reads, and it was really cool seeing when Luke became, I forget what it was, but he basically became like one with the Force, and he started like shining all golden and whatnot. And he was, what was he doing? He was fighting off the Yuuzhan Vong, and like they were saying that he was going so fast it looked like 1,000 lightsabers just swinging at once. That stuff was really cool, and that comic itself was really enjoyable read. It's nice to see characters like Luke get that crazy powerful, and I don't like OP stuff where everybody's overpowered as hell, like Starkiller and everything. But Luke kind of built up to that, and it was really just cool to see that new aspects of the Force, and so I really like that. Next question I have here is, what is your favorite Star Wars soundtrack? That's a rough one. That's a rough one. If I had to pick, truly, I'm gonna have to say Duel Fates. I really like what happened in the original trilogy because for that the music set up the story perfectly. It set up everything that was really great. But for me, the Duel Fates one it had cinematography aside and choreography with the fights. All that aside, the music truly does get you pumped up. The original Star Wars theme song is, of course, a classic, but it fades out into kind of like we're telling a story and whatnot, and that's what this is now. And we're showing you these words that you got to read and everything. With Duel of Fates, it's just loud, it's operatic, it's beautiful. It reminds me of Queen, Freddie Mercury and everything. And so I really do like that one, and that's probably going to be my favorite. Even though The Phantom Menace was not my favorite movie at all, I thought that was a very good soundtrack. Someone asked, favorite character in the Clone Wars era. Oh, Clone Wars era in general? Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. There's not... Yeah, you got me on the fence there. Because if we're talking prequels-wise, no offense, guys, there's not a lot of characters I connect to in the prequels and that I really liked. But in the Clone Wars era itself, you can talk about shows and whatnot. Man, I'm leaning towards Obi-Wan, but I didn't really like his character too much in the prequels, except for the third movie, because he actually got some fleshed out compared to the first two. Yoda was okay. Mace Windu. Dude, that's tough, man. I'm sorry. I don't have a favorite character. If I had to pick, it might be one of the clones, like Fives and whatnot, but I really can't pick one right now, man. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank on that. Another question is, prequels, sequels, or originals? Actually, I got really drunk last night, and I watched New Hope, and I loved it. I really did love it. Well, I wasn't truly drunk. I was really buzzed, but... just had a lot of whiskey, and I started watching, and I was like, what, this is truly magical for me. I mean, it perfectly shows Luke's struggles, what's going on with the Empire at the moment, kind of the war aspect, and then you find out about your hero, and you learn things with him as the journey goes on. I can't get that with the prequels or the sequels. I have a lot of problems with the prequels, and I have a lot of problems with the sequels, but the prequels just have so much chaoticness going on that it truly just I can't wrap my head around it half the time. I don't know what character I'm supposed to follow, who's my main character, who's my protagonist. The originals, I get that. Sequels, with the way the sequels were going, I was like, you know what, I like Episode 7. This is a good start. It's not the best film in the world, but it's a good stepping stone. That's really what I expected from Episode 8. Was like, okay, well, this should really completely drive the story further and get our characters a lot better and fleshed out. So I'm excited about that. But then Episode 8 came out, and the sequels aren't done. We still have Episode 9, but so far they're a big flop for me. Well, they're not a flop, but I have a okay film and I have a really bad film, and I don't like that. And so for me, I feel like the original trilogy has the best films out of all of them. Return of the Jedi is by far the weakest film out of the original trilogy, but I would of course put that up against almost every single other movie out there that's not the other two originals. So I have to lean towards originals all the time. I love A New Hope, I love Empire Strikes Back, and I really like Return of the Jedi. I don't like The Phantom Menace. I hate Attack of the Clones. I enjoy Revenge of the Sith. I enjoy, The Force Awakens. I enjoy. Well, actually, I don't. Well, I enjoy Rogue One, but I hate The Last Jedi. So I can't, pick with a. I can't pick prequels or sequels without being a hypocrite. I don't like most of those movies so far, and so originals by far is my favorite part, and it's what I fell in love with originally when I grew up. So let's see some other questions here. Someone asked me fave movie. I don't know, probably Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's definitely one of my favorites of all time. If not that, Empire Strikes Back, but Forrest Gump's a great one. Another one is, who's your favorite Jedi who is not Skywalker, Obi-Wan, or Yoda? Ooh, yeah, you're playing hard to get now, aren't you? You're probably trying to go outside of the EU then, or not outside of the EU, outside of the original, movies and whatnot. Kyle Katarn was pretty cool. I liked him a lot. Bastila Shan, she was really cool. I'm going to have to lean towards one of those two. Yeah, Kyle Katarn specifically, later in. He was kind of with the whole Luke era and everything. But there's just a lot of good Jedi out there. Not as interesting as some of the Sith Lords that you have in the Star Wars universe, but a lot of interesting Jedi that you can really like and enjoy. I thought it was kind of cool when Starkiller became a Jedi, even though he wasn't a full fleshed out Jedi. But yeah, I'm probably going to lean towards Kyle Katarn. I liked his adventure. I like the stuff that he went on in his character. Another question we have here is, do you like Solo? And he means the Solo movie, a Star Wars story. No. Honestly, no. I don't like it. I had an okay time, but in the end, it's a movie I forgot really easily because it was very forgettable. It was a generic movie, in my opinion. It's like, if you didn't call it a Star Wars movie, people would be like, oh, it's like a Fast and Furious. Oh, it's like a action flick, just one of those classic little action flicks where, or I'm trying to think of other, or John Wick in a way, or there's a heist that you got to do, Suicide Squad from the DC universe. It just was a very generic movie to me. Or even, I just saw that one movie this past weekend, it's called The Predator, and that and Solo for me are kind of equal in terms of what's going on. I like the characters enough in Solo, especially Lando and Han Solo himself, but I don't feel like Han Solo was Han Solo. It just was not a film that I think needed to be made. It could be easily forgotten, and I don't think anyone's going to care. Honestly, it's not a very memorable film. I don't hate it though. I don't want people to say, "Oh, you don't like Solo," and it's not that I don't like it because it's not good. I can see how people enjoy it. It's not that I don't like it because it doesn't weigh anything, and there's no emotion to it for me. It's just kind of whatever. It's like a fan film, and so I don't hate it. I don't love it. I did enjoy it at times, but overall I was just like, whatever. So, what are your favorite ground-based vehicles in Star Wars, buddy? I don't care. That's my answer to that. I don't like people asking me questions like that because it's like what stuff like that for me. It doesn't mean anything, and it's not worth talking about. No, I'm not trying to be a dick. It's just like I don't really care. It's a ground vehicle. Who cares? Someone asked, how long before Kathleen Kennedy loses her job? I don't know. Don't believe everything you hear that they're trying to get her fired and she's going to get fired soon. If anything, she's made a pretty buck for Disney, and those are the people she needs to make money for. Overall, though, I do think eventually she's going to have to step down. And she definitely won't get fired. She won't lose her job. They're going to, of course, ask her to resign, which is technically losing it, but it's definitely not going to be like a firing because that can lead to a lot of drama that Disney definitely doesn't want, and that's a lot of bad PR for them and bad publicity that you just don't want to deal with. I will say, though, if Episode 9, which I do expect to not be as successful as the past two, if Episode 9 does what I think it's going to do, they're really going to look at her and be like, hey, we're going to have to ask you to step down. Publicly resign, retire, whatever. We'll give you severance, but you got to go. And I could see that happening because we still don't have any news about the 2020 movie for the spinoff. We don't know anything about that. So they're definitely at a weird state right now. So I do think that eventually she might lose her job, but I don't think it's going to be like a firing or anything. But someone else asked, why didn't they delve into any backstory of Snoke or Knights of Ren? Like, would take 3 to 5 minutes? Hey, and that's a question I had a lot too. A lot of people complain about Snoke not having a backstory, and I myself have that same complaint. And people will rebuttal that and say, well, Emperor Palpatine didn't have a backstory. Well, you're right, but when we went into the original trilogy, we didn't know anybody's backstory. That's the problem with Snoke is that, we've all seen the original trilogy. This is episode 7 and 8, so there's an order to them. You watch the previous movies, you know who Palpatine is. And you know that 7 and 8 take place not too long after the original trilogy. It's only 30 years. So for us, we want to know the backstory of where did this guy come from, and he looks so old and ancient. Like, what's his backstory? How did they go from beating the Emperor and Darth Vader to letting this guy rise to power? Why would this happen? So that's why I would want a backstory on him. I just need to know what happened. And I agree. Give him a little backstory, and take a few minutes. Just be like, have Rey look at him and be like, what are you? You're some kind of monster. Look how ugly you are. And just like kind of tease him, and him just give hints like I was in a great war, like spending eternities fighting or something like that. I don't know. Something interesting, but take some time with that. Same with the Knights of Ren. They completely just left. They were in The Force Awakens. They were mentioned in The Force Awakens. And I don't even think they were touched on even a little bit in this movie. Maybe at the beginning of the movie where it says, I think in the opening crawls it talks about Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, but I really don't know. So yeah, I really wish they would have done that. I think Ryan wanted to do something so much different with Luke. He didn't even think to focus on those characters, especially like the Knights of Ren. And with Snoke, I think he wanted to do the same thing with Rey, where he's like, he's a nobody. Anybody can be powerful in this universe, which I understand the message and I don't mind that, but that's a long conversation, so it's whatever. Let's see. Next question we have is, how do you think Episode 9 be? I assume he means will be. I think it'll be the best out of the trilogy, and I honestly do. The reason being is I feel like there's a lot of good signs pointing towards what JJ's doing. So there's been rumors that he's going to focus on the prequels a little more. It's going to tie in perfectly. It's going to be the ending to the Skywalker saga, or the Skywalker story, basically. And so with that, I think JJ knows that he has to give it a memorable ending, and to do that, he needs to kind of bring in all the fans. And with that, he's going to have to bring in some aspects from the prequels and bring, of course, as he did already, with a lot of aspects from the originals. And so, and honest to God, I really do think that's going to be the best one. I don't think it's going to be, better than the original trilogy. I don't think it's going to be even better probably than Revenge of the Sith. But I think it'll be a very interesting movie. And I think it'll kind of surprise the people who go in and just be like, huh? Because JJ is a good director. He got crap for The Force Awakens, but I think most people would argue that it's not a horrible film. People might not like it, but it feels like Star Wars. And so I think JJ wanted to set up these characters and build them for Episode 8, and then finally give them a nice conclusion in Episode 9 where it's emotional and it feels like a proper ending to the Skywalker family and the Skywalker name. But I don't know. We're going to have to see. It's going to take a while, but I'm excited to see where they go with that. Let's see. Another one, Kit Fisto versus Darth Maul, who would win? I'm going to have to probably go to Darth Maul. Seeing Fisto, I believe his form of Jedi or of lightsaber fighting is the one where you take on like multiple attackers at once. Like that's the specialty. I forget which form it is because there's 7 of them, 8 if you include the pod. And Darth Maul, he took out Qui-Gon Jinn, and I mean that's a feat worth noting. He took out Pre Vizsla. He held his own with a lot of these lightsaber fights that he went in, and Kit Fisto did, of course. He took on Grievous, and Grievous lost to Obi-Wan just like Maul did, but Maul had some good moments in the Clone Wars show when he fought some people. So I think in the end Maul would probably beat him. What is your favorite Star Wars spaceship? I mean, I don't really have one. I guess the Falcon. It's the most classic. It's the most nostalgic, and they keep using that. They used it a lot in Episode 7, used it a lot in Episode 8. Used it a lot in the Solo Star Wars story, and I know Solo was about him, so it's of course going to be about the Falcon. But this nostalgia worked for Episode 7, but when it came to Episode 8 and then Solo, it's like, all right, you don't have to keep using the Falcon over and over again. We get it; it's a great ship, but don't focus on it so much. But whatever. That probably would have to be my favorite one. Do you think Rebels got better as time went on? Yes, by far. Compared to Season 1 and 2. 4 is great, and 3 is pretty good as well. And I say 4 is great. I don't think it's a great show. I think 4 is very good for what the show was, and I don't think the show is memorable for a lot of people. I don't think in 20 years or even 10 years we're going to look back and be like, bro, remember that show Rebels? It was so good. The characters did become more likable as time went on, It's just that the fillers got so old and tiring with seasons 2 and 3 for sure. When it came to 4, there were so many episodes that weren't filler that actually did impact the story and actually focused on the characters' emotions and what they were going through. When Kanan died, they spent time mourning his death and actually dealing with that, and that was nice. And it seemed like our characters actually struggled a little bit. That's one of the biggest problems with Rebels, is that the characters have the huge plot armor where they never fail, they always succeed, even if, you know, a situation's dire or they're really trapped or whatever, they succeed at it. One of my favorite episodes is the episode with Zeb and the colonel or admiral from the other team. It starts with the Y, forgive me for not remembering it, but Zeb and him, you know, they were trapped in a cave for like a day or two or whatever, and you know, they didn't like each other, of course, and they disagreed, but they kind of started coming to an understanding, and that really fleshed out both their characters and hinted that, you know, Zeb's enemy was going to join them, and eventually, of course, he did. But it was just nice to see that, and that wasn't a filler episode, and even if it was a filler episode that doesn't further the plot, but furthers the characters. It builds on the characters and their arcs and their emotions and what they're going through, and so that's why episodes like that were good. But then you have a lot of filler episodes, like a droid flying in the air or whatnot, whichever one that was. And there's one where like the Empire takes control of Chopper or something like that. It's stuff like that where it's like, that's not any emotion, that's not any character building. So Rebels had a lot of bad things about it, but it did have some good, solid moments in it that were enjoyable. So I don't think it's going to get better over time. I think it's as good as it's ever going to be, and it was just okay for a lot of people. And I think that's the best we're going to get. So, someone else asked a question, episode 7 or 3. That's a tough one for me because I know a lot of people like Revenge of the Sith, and I got to be honest, it's not my favorite at all. There's a lot of problems I have with it in terms of acting, writing, storytelling, action. There's a lot of weird parts, and there's just a lot of stuff that felt unnecessary, but besides that, you know, The Force Awakens makes me feel like I'm in a Star Wars movie. It feels like Star Wars to me. And the problem I had with it, though, is I didn't understand a lot of characters' motivations. And I understood Episode 3's motivations clearly. I understood Anakin's motivations and Obi-Wan's for sure. And even kind of at the end, Palpatine's, just the rule and destroy the Jedi and whatnot. I didn't know what Padme's motivations were other than having a baby, I guess. But, you know, I would have to pick Revenge of the Sith. I do think the action was better. I think the movie, in a sense, may not have felt like a traditional Star Wars movie to me, but definitely had a lot of higher points than the Force Awakens. Force Awakens had, you know, consistently it was okay. The entire movie was just consistently okay. Revenge of the Sith has its bad moments that are really bad, but they have their good moments, and they're really, really good. They're great. Their good moments are above every moment in the Force Awakens, like hands down. Even the ending where you see Luke and everything, that was a great moment, but I would pick, you know, Anakin and Obi-Wan having an emotional battle, and Obi-Wan, you know, giving him that speech at the end. I would pick that over anything in The Force Awakens. So, yeah, I would have to pick Revenge of the Sith at the end. Not saying it's a better movie in general, but I personally think I like it more. So, of course, I already have like 3 questions saying, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Someone asked a more personal question about me. How long have you been doing MMA, and what made you start? I started about 9 years old. I trained in Ishinryu. It's a karate, Japanese style. And I got like an orange belt. I did about a year. And then I switched to American Taekwondo, and that focused more on punching and kicking. And I got my black belt in that when I was 13, 12, something like that. Probably 13 or something like that. I was a little older. I got my black belt in that, and I taught in that and trained in that for a while, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu about a year or two ago. So I've been doing it since I was 9, so 9 years, or 10 years, because I'm 19 now. But I really got into it after I turned like 12 or 11, when I was training for my black belts, when I really stepped it up. And so, yeah, that's, you know, I eventually will do an MMA fight. You know, I'll do like a amateur or a professional fight, probably an amateur first. But yeah, that's just my personal stuff. I do MMA. I'm not planning on being the next Conor McGregor. I just like fighting. I really do. I like the concept of it, of course. I mean, who doesn't like fighting? But I like the mental games and the strategies you have to make, and all the competing that goes into it. It's really enjoyable. And so I will eventually make a debut in MMA, but that's neither here or there. So let's keep talking about Star Wars. Give me a second. I gotta load up some questions. All right. Ooh, we got a lot now. Jesus. All right. If you could kill one person in the Star Wars galaxy, who would it be? Well, depending on what aspect of it, am I doing it for personal pleasure? Am I doing it to affect the outcome of Star Wars? I'd probably have to, in the end, really just... Probably Haldo. Honest to God, probably be Haldo. Because she's one of those, I was thinking between her, Rose, and Jar Jar. Jar Jar is annoying enough where he's chuckleable. Where you look at him, you're like, like, he's that annoying where you're just like, huh. Like, you're annoying, but it's funny. Like, a dry chuckle, like, ha, whatever. Rose makes you cringe. Haldo really makes you cringe. Rose's cringe, though, is, you understand her motivations a little better, I guess, and you just understand she's just probably one of those weird people. Haldo, on the other hand, it's like she's just stuck up and rude for no reason, and so that's why I'd probably want to kill her compared to the other two, because she's smart enough to understand that A, you're about to kill her, and B, that you're not going to take her shit, and you're doing it out of petty. You're doing it because you don't like her, and that's how I would do it. I'd have a lightsaber or a gun pointed at her and be like, dude, I hate you. I hate you. Why didn't you tell Poe the plan? And her just being like, I'm a strong, independent woman, and I don't need no man. I'm like, well, you don't need this bullet in your head either, but you're about to get it. So, I'd probably have to kill Haldo. How does throwing a lightsaber like a boomerang work? What they do is they use the Force. They throw a lightsaber and they kind of use a Force push at the same time. And when they bring it back around, they're just pulling it right back. Kind of like you see with Thor's hammer. I mean, it's almost a great representation, except Thor doesn't have to focus so much as the Jedi or a Sith does when they're throwing the lightsabers. It's like, what's that? Kara? Darth? No. Ah, crap. I gotta look it up, bro. I can't remember. She's from Knights of the Old Republic. Or Tara? Darth... Treya. My God, that's got to be her. Treya. Yes. Oh my God, why was I saying Kira Kar or whatever? Darth Treya from Knights of the Republic. She is really good in the Force, like mentally. Like she can use the Force kind of like Yoda would, and that's why she's so good at using the lightsabers that spin around her. So that's why I would say, well, that's how I say like lightsabers work. You really have to use the Force and be mentally strong with it. This one's a long one. Do you think Star Wars should just reboot so we can stop hoping for what used to be and accept some probably saying something different? No, I don't think a reboot was necessary. I think the original trilogy was great. I think the prequels of, if you were going to restart something, most people would say go back and restart the prequels and just start from there, because don't touch the original trilogy. It's perfect. You don't really need to change too much. And so I don't think a reboot's necessary. It's not a franchise. It's a special franchise. It's not something like the robot or what's his name, RoboCop stuff. That movie. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like these DC movies like Batman and everything you can put out all the time and just keep rebooting. Or Spider-Man. He got a lot of reboots. It's not something like that where you just want to keep rebooting it. Star Wars is special. It is a culture phenomenon. It changed our society in America as a whole, and even in Europe. It was a big thing that shook the world. You don't want to reboot Jurassic Park because the classics are great and there's nothing that can beat it. You don't want to reboot Back to the Future because the classics are great, except for episode 3, the third one. These movies are great for a reason, so rebooting them kind of loses the specialty to them. It loses the magic. So I definitely would never recommend doing that. How would the original trilogy have changed if the fight on Mustafar ended differently? Well, what do you mean differently? There's a lot of different things that happen. Anakin could have actually died, or then you have, if Anakin had won and then Obi-Wan died, if that was the case, I don't think Luke would have ever happened. I mean, honestly, probably the Empire would rule forever if that's the case. Movie-wise, there's not much to go off of. Yoda would have just died out and hide, or he probably would have tried a little harder to fight back, I guess. But in the end, I mean, if that fight had ended differently, there's nothing that would be the same in the original trilogy. I can't think of an aspect where it'd be even similar. Without Obi-Wan, he would never, Luke wouldn't know anything at all, and Yoda would have to be the one in charge of that. But that's kind of crazy too, because Yoda's so powerful in the Force. That's why he went to the cave on Dagobah. He went right by that cave because the cave was so dark in the Force. it's a negative and a positive. They cancel out each other. It just flatlined it. So that's how that works. So yeah, I really don't think changing that fight would be beneficial for anything in the original trilogy. Let's see. Here's another one. What do you foresee for the Star Wars franchise? I foresee this year being a bad one, as it already has been. And then I think from 2019 to 2001, it'll be an okay time. We'll get a lot of new shows, movies, and games that it might actually, some of them have to be good. I mean, Jesus Christ, could you imagine if they were all just absolutely horrible, like The Last Jedi and Battlefront 2? That'd be god-awful. I foresee that being a good time for being Star Wars fans. And then I think after that, we'll have some questions on what to do with the franchise. Because once Episode 9 comes out, then we have to worry about a lot of different things. We have to worry about the new standalone films that are coming out. And those I'm not worried too much about. Standalone films can come out till I die and I'll be okay. If they're just about random characters and random stories that don't really tie in too much with everything else and they're just for fun, fine. But episodic-wise, something like Rian Johnson's trilogy or the people who made Game of Thrones, the writers for that, all that stuff, that's where we need to be like, all right, do we keep going with this or should we ask them to stop? Because personally, I would think you should just stop. But everyone's going to say it should stop at different periods. So it's really hard to judge some of that stuff. How do you feel about the Star Wars fandom in general? Not very fondly. I would say about 45, maybe 40% of them are pretty damn toxic. And the other 55 or 60% of them are pretty good, but very silent. I get a lot of crap for Star Wars, but, even on stuff that I wouldn't feel like is controversial, because I try to be, not very controversial, but I try to be open and not optimistic, but honest about things, and talk about everything that I can, and kind of look at it from a philosophical standpoint on what is Star Wars, why do we like Star Wars, why is this movie good, why is it not? I like talking about that stuff, and for that reason, giving so many opinions out, people will turn on me and get like, hey, dude, I don't agree with you, and they get passionate about that stuff, because a lot of people are very passionate about Star Wars. So, I feel like the fandom's very passionate, and I feel like the fandom can't take difference of opinions well, and that's just a modern society thing. But that Lord of the Rings video I posted with Sam's speech, when I was making that, it kind of got me choked up, because I was like, this fits so perfectly, and I think this video is really good, and I like the message and the meaning behind it, and this shows me how much I love the original trilogy. I was like, well, which which Anakin do I want to use at the ending scene where it shows the Force Ghost? I was like, do I want to use the original because it's been an original trilogy video only kind of thing, or do I want to put the Hayden version because that's the one most people recognize and know now, and it's kind of a little nod to the prequel fans, like, hey, we're noticing the prequels as well. I put Hayden Christensen in there as the Anakin Ghost, and I got hate from both sides. I got hate from the original trilogy people saying, why would you put the prequel stuff in there that ruined the whole thing? And then I got people from the prequel trilogy saying, you should put more prequel stuff in there, and all that. And you didn't appreciate the prequels at all. And so it's like nothing I can do could please the fandom. Nothing I could say. I mean, I could literally come out and say, I love Star Wars, and people would say, no, you don't, because you don't like this movie, or you can't like Star Wars because The Last Jedi was trash, and that's not Star Wars. It's something, it gets annoying because it's like these people are so negative and so hateful, and I know people give me crap for being negative and complaining, but I try to give solutions. I try to say, what's wrong with it, and how do we fix it, or why was this wrong, and why it wasn't good, but why this was good. I try to talk about that stuff, but I don't go from this aspect of everything that's new in Star Wars sucks, because that's a lie. There's some good aspects to it, but I just think the fandom's just too passionate. I think we don't need to disconnect ourselves from Star Wars, but I think we really just need to, calm down and be like, hey, I love these movies and I love this franchise, but if I died today, Star Wars would not miss me. So if Star Wars died today, I can miss it, but it's not going to affect my life too much. It is just movies, and it's huge on our childhood and emotional and our characters as people, but that doesn't mean you get to, fight people because they have a different childhood than you do, or, they disagree with you on certain aspects of Star Wars. We all have our own opinions, and we're all entitled to them, but the fandom disagrees. So I think the fandom really just needs to calm down. I think we need to try to just realize, hey, these are just movies, and they're not going to be as good as they used to be, and that's okay. What's my body count? Ooh, that's a personal question, but it's 15. 15. Yep. What's your favorite Clone Wars episode / arc? I would have to say the attack on Kamino was very emotional, very good. I liked the 99's death. That made me cry as a kid, and that was just a really good time to invest into the clones characters a little more. I like that. I like the Mortis arc a lot. I like the Mandalore stuff that Obi-Wan went through. So there's a lot, but if I had to pick, I would have to say the Kamino attack one. That's probably my favorite, dealing with those characters. What do you like more, the Clone Wars animated show from 2003 or the one that aired on Cartoon Network? Definitely Cartoon Network. I grew up with the one from 2003. Me and my dad would watch that all the time, and I feel bad for my dad because I had to make him watch it a lot, but I really loved both of those that came out. Each one was like an hour, I think. I watched them a lot as a kid. But when the show came out, it was something to look forward to constantly. The characters felt even more fleshed out than they did in the show, the 2003 one. So yeah, definitely the show fleshed out a lot more characters and introduced more characters like Ahsoka that you could build on. So that was nice, and I did enjoy that. Who would win in a duel, Obi-Wan or Sidious? By far Sidious. He was the most powerful Sith ever. Do you like the prequel or sequels better? I can't answer that yet, and here's why. Honestly, when people say the prequels are good, they mainly mean Episode 3. And fine, by all means, I enjoy Episode 3. But the other two I don't like. Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones are bad. So I only like one movie from the sequels. From the prequels. Well, I also only like one movie from the sequels. Now, I happen to like the prequel one more than I like the sequel one, like we talked about earlier. Episode 3 versus 7. But in the end, if Episode 9 comes out and it's better than Force Awakens, and I like it, then that's going to be two movies I like from the sequels, only one movie I like from the prequels. So right now I'm picking prequels. I like them better right now, because there are some aspects of the Phantom Menace that I somewhat enjoy. But other than that, it's tough to pick. There's not a third movie out for the sequels yet. Is there anything good you can say about The Last Jedi? No insult intended, just wondering. And I'm not doing a bit here and trying to be funny. I really don't know. I really don't think so. Maybe the part where Rey and Kylo fight. That was a very beautiful shot, very beautiful scene. The choreography was horrible, though, and a lot of it didn't make sense to me. And I was just baffled by how the movie was going at that point. If I had to pick a good part or a good thing about The Last Jedi, is that it's beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful Star Wars movies you're ever going to see, by far. It's like, for me, the Last Jedi is like a lot of icing with no cake. Just ton of icing that looks pretty, but once you move the icing, there's no cake inside. So it's like, well, then what the hell? So yeah, I think the movie looks beautiful. The shot where Holdo uses hyperspace to go through whatever the ship, Snoke ship, that was a beautiful shot. And there's just a lot of beautiful scenes that happen in it that just look amazing. But I just didn't like the film. But that is one good thing I would say is good about The Last Jedi. Would you use violin for your fan film? Because I know violin if needed. Buddy, I'm not making a fan film, so that's irrelevant to me. Does Rebel take place after Rogue One and A New Hope, in between 4 and Empire? What? It takes place before Rogue One, because that's before A New Hope. So yeah, no, it's before all that, buddy. Let's see. Do I have any other questions that I can say right here? What most powerful Jedi, in my opinion? I say Luke Skywalker. Definitely Luke. Definitely Luke. He is by far the most powerful Jedi. There's not much debating that. Lucas himself said he was the most powerful, and a lot of evidence in the EU supports that. Even the way he went out in The Last Jedi, teleporting himself, or kind of doing a hologram thing, that was really cool. This question keeps popping up, and I don't know why, but it's MGK or Eminem, Machine Gun Kelly or Eminem. By far, Eminem, I think he's the best rapper of all time. I think some of the other best rappers are Biggie, Tupac, Nas, Mr. Andre 3000 from Outkast. He's really good. Slick Rick, I love Slick Rick. But yeah, Eminem's by far one of the best. MGK, I'm not into his kind of stuff. What actors / actresses would you like to see in the new trilogy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good actors out there. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. could do something. I mean, everyone loves him. Christian Bale, Tom Hardy. There's so many. Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, there's countless actors. I can't really answer that, man. If you could be in a Star Wars movie, what would your name be? I've always liked the name Damon. Damon. I've always thought that'd be a good name for either my kid, because I think that's a cool boy name, and I just think that'd be it sounds like adventurous and Star Wars and character enough to be a Star Wars name. Do you like Darth Sidious? Yeah. Darth Sidious is a very good character. Just a plain, straight up evil guy that's really powerful and also wise at the same time, and corruptive and everything. Seeing what he did to Darth Plagueis in that book, I like that stuff, and I think that's very interesting about his character. So yeah, I definitely like Darth Sidious, and I think he was a really good villain for the Star Wars saga. What is your opinion on the Star Wars stories? I don't know. There's a lot of them. They're all more or less pretty good. I'm gonna have to skip that one because I can't really give much. All right. The next one is in one word, describe the sequels. Disappointing. I guess, or I don't know. Disappointing. Force Awakens was a little disappointing. The Last Jedi was just god awful. So they're very disappointing. Here's another question that people always ask about me being the head of Lucasfilm. Remember I ran for president? It was a big long joke, but people took it seriously. This person asked, if you were the head of Lucasfilm, what would the next Star Wars saga be about? Probably original, or not original, my bad, Old Republic territory. Maybe even a little bit before that. Kind of like, even it could be like Dawn of the Republic, kind of the start of it. And I would try to focus on an actual war between the Jedi and the Sith, but not just focus on it being, oh, badass, lightsaber swinging and stuff like that. We don't like you because you're you, and you don't like us because we're us. I would try to focus more on the philosophy of it, of the Jedi are like, we want people to be free and have free will and do whatever they want and, go live their own lives. And the Sith are like, no, we want to control people, and you don't want them to be free because you don't want people to love. Jedi can't have emotion. You're not allowed to have attachments and everything. That's not free. That's confinement. What's different between that and what we're doing, controlling the people and everything? And the Jedi are like, trying to avoid. Sorry, some weed eater went off in my neighbor's yard and it freaked me out for a second. By the way, I'm high as shit. So, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, my trilogy. So yeah, no, I definitely would have it focus on the philosophy between the Jedi and the Sith, and just kind of that moral battle, and have the people of the Republic kind of, when the Republic's forming, decide who are they going to side with. Do they want to be ruled by the Sith, but not have to deal with the emotional stuff that goes on with the Jedi, and kind of, let's say they disagree with the Jedi and whatnot, and they want the Sith because they can bring true order. It's kind of like a big brother government kind of thing where they take care of the people, and you have a truly big government that's just running things, versus the Jedi where it's like anything can happen. Free, laissez-faire capitalism stuff that happened in the 1800s where a lot of people were poor on the streets and everything. Maybe the Jedi were defending the Republic, and the people of the Republic aren't happy with them because they're in a depression or something like that. Something like that where it really discusses the philosophy and the story between the Jedi and the Sith. Kind of like The Last Jedi was going into, but failed miserably because it almost shat on everything that the previous films had built. For me, it would want to be just why the Sith and the Jedi don't like each other, other than the fact that they just don't like each other, and one's evil, one's bad. I would try to focus on, the real discussions about the Star Wars and the characters and the sides you have. So, I like focusing on story like that, and I think that'd be a really cool idea. I don't know if I could execute it, but still. Someone said, Rey is strong because it's convenient. How could have anyone been on Jakku? How wrong am I? What? It's convenient. Could have been anyone on Jakku? Oh yeah, Rey is strong because it's convenient. Could have been anyone on Jakku. How wrong am I? I mean, not entirely. I don't really know. I'm not sure if I get that, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm just going to skip that. What is your least favorite thing about The Last Jedi? By far, Luke. The story. There's so many things. Just trying to subvert expectations so much that you fail miserably. Trying to do something so different that it's not even recognizable as a Star Wars thing. And so I don't think... Rian Johnson tried to be creative. He tried to be different. And I understand what he was going for in terms of, like I said earlier about my trilogy, what I would want to be discussing the philosophy of the Jedi and kind of showing that the fact that they're, failures and everything. And that would make sense if it would have been anyone but Luke. If Luke hadn't gone through all that trouble in the original trilogy to become a Jedi and be a guy who never turns his back on anybody, it's just kind of crazy that he would do the opposite of what he used to do in The Last Jedi when he's a grown man and he's mature compared to when he started. And so it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But my least favorite thing would be trying to do too much all at once, too philosophical and whatnot. But whatever. Another question is, what do you believe would could be Star Wars saving grace? Honestly, standalone films and video games and shows. Avoid the movies as much as you can, like episodic movies and like trilogies. I think standalone films are like Rogue One and Solo could come out every 2 or 3 years, and I'd be okay with it. Kind of like some of these Marvel movies, but just not as big and flashy. They're just movies that expand on certain characters and aspects of Star Wars, but they don't focus too much on like the episodic stuff, and just kind of get away from all that. Just a fun little film that you can watch from time to time, but they're so forgettable, they don't make Star Wars lose its special, lose its magic. So I think that would be a saving grace. Just avoid the episodic stuff. Come out with decent video games every few years so fans can play, that give new characters. Some games like Uncharted and, Clone Wars shows, or, shows like the live action stuff where it's a nice little Star Wars fan thing. The big casual people and, America as a whole doesn't have to focus on it. Just leave it stuff for Star Wars fans. I can't see if I can find any other questions. I think I've answered a lot of them. Yep, I'm not finding much. Hang on, let me refresh my Instagram. Been talking for 46 minutes. My God, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I smoked oh my God, what's the name? I smoked a thing called a Skywalker. It's like it's weed, but it's like covered in keef and got wax in it and everything. It's really cool. So yeah, that was cool. But it was called Skywalker, and boy, I'm walking on cloud 9 right now. I'm not finding anything, guys. I'm not finding any questions. So I don't know. It's been good Star Wars conversation. Tell me if y'all think I should keep doing this stuff, because I like talking Star Wars. People give me a lot of crap about being a hater of Star Wars when I really do love it. I just like talking about Star Wars. That's why I wanted to do this, is because A, I'm high, and B, it's just nice to talk about Star Wars. It's a good conversation. I wish I can get like other people involved though, like either a live Q&A, or I mean, this kind of was one, but from my perspective. But a podcast with a friend or something like that. I have friends, but they're not like that big into Star Wars where they want to talk about it like on a podcast kind of thing. And if they do, they're not in the same city or state. Or, my friend from Instagram and whatnot, they're all different states and whatnot. A few of us are actually in Texas, but most of us are separated. And so I want to do stuff like that, expand the channel a little more, And I would love to have like podcasts for people on, talk to like people like Hella Greedo or any other Star Wars YouTube channels, or debate people about Star Wars, like other channels where people kind of tune in live and we just kind of have a debate about certain aspects of Star Wars, what we like, what we don't like, and what went wrong with this movie and all that stuff. Stuff like that's always interesting, and I think a lot of people would like that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Check if we got any more questions again. Oh man, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, I'm not finding anything. Favorite Mario Kart map? I haven't played Mario Kart in years. I really don't remember much on it. Sorry, buddy. Well, it looks like that's it, guys. I'm not getting any more questions coming in on Instagram right now. I'll keep checking every few seconds because I ran out of stuff to talk to. Tell me if you like this. Like this little conversation. It's kind of like if you watch MMA, Chael Sonnen, he does podcasts like this and everything, and it's really just him. Tell me if you guys like this kind of video. We'll call it just talking Star Wars. And so tell me if you want me to keep doing this, because if you do, I can try to do this like every week or every month or something like that. Just have one come out every now and then. Just you guys ask me questions on Instagram and whatnot. If you want, ask me questions in the comments or something like that, and I can put in another Q&A thing that we have where we just talk about Star Wars. And so yeah, I had fun doing this. Hope you guys did too. Just a nice long little talk, almost an hour, about 50 minutes. So I had fun doing this. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it this far into the video, if you listened the whole way through, show your loyalty. Comment and put in the comments, the Jawa runs at night. Just to show your love, man. Just to show that you made it this far. And if you see that comment, that means that he did it, because you know, you see a guy put it, you're like, all right, that's my boy. I made it to the end of the video too. So put down in the comments. Jawa runs at night. You know, I've been high as shit, so sorry if this was kind of all over the place, but I had a good time with you guys. So thanks for watching. I love you guys. Star Wars only. I'll see y'all next time. May the Force be with you always.